Welcome everyone to this Cup of Coffee podcast with me, your host Tom Dillon. This has been recorded live at our Tin Pot mobile studio and broadcast around the world. Today's topic is maximising revenue from your short-term rental with Event Intelligence with Andy Crosby. Before we start, I'd just like to say by way of a disclaimer that today's wonderful discussion, probably what I should say by way of a disclaimer is I'm on antibiotics. And I mean, as of about an hour ago, and I've got one fewer tooth than I had 3 hours ago. I promise I won't show you my missing tooth because nobody wants to see it, especially those listening on the podcast because that'd be a waste of time. But I'm all over the place in that I didn't know this was going to get extracted till about an hour before it did. So and then we got snuck in a cheeky appointment, and now I'm down a tooth. I'm going to check tomorrow, see what's done to my body weight, but I'm not holding out that much hope it's made much of a difference. It was a big tooth, but not that big. Before dropped my BMI by 0.2. Before we start, I'd like to say by way of a disclaimer that today is a wonderful discussion, but that nothing said here constitutes financial advice, and you should always take professional advice before investing your hard-earned cash. There may be the odd unplanned swear word along the way as well. The format for today is that me and Andy will just have a lovely little chat, I think. At least that's the plan. Andy Crosby is the founder of HostAlert. That's one word, HostAlert. Not Andy Crosby, that's two words. A platform he created after repeatedly missing out on higher value bookings because reliable event data simply wasn't available. While running his Airbnb properties, he found that major events like Taylor Swift concerts, Dua Lipa tours, and the Grand National were filling accommodation long before hosts had the chance to adjust their pricing. To solve that problem, he partnered with a leading data intelligence company to build HostAlert, that's one word, an app specifically designed to help short-term rental hosts anticipate demand and maximise their revenue. I can already hear the short-term hosts amongst you, kind of the ears pricking up, and everyone else has probably gone home because why are you still here? So, yeah, get to the next one. Or don't. Andy seems like a really nice guy. He might be about to prove me wrong, but he seems like a nice fella. So he might be an excellent person to learn some. It might not just be about short-term rentals. He might learn some other stuff. So stick around. Alongside HostAlert, Andy has extensive experience buying, renovating and flipping residential property in the Wirral and Liverpool areas. He also runs Airbnb properties himself and is the owner of Modular Management, a business that installs and services modular buildings at sites across the UK. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm brilliant. As you can tell, I'm not at all sideways on painkillers and codeine. Genuinely great to have you on as always, and that might be the longest intro we've done for anyone.
Really appreciate it.
No, thanks for taking the time. So let's get straight into you, and then more. My business partner Chris says that when you stand up to speak to people, you should tell them who you are and why they should care that you're here, in that order, and get onto it right quick. So with that in mind, and with me as the host, I'll try and guide us to that happy place as quickly as I can. So why don't we start with who you are? How did you sort of first get into property, and what were your early experiences of what was going on?
Yeah, so my name's Andy Crosby. I started in property when I was quite young, actually. So when I was 16, I was actually started for a local estate agent in Liverpool, and my job was originally to deliver leaflets, canvassing door to door, saying, "Hey, do you want to sell your home? Sell it with us. We'll offer you a reduced fee." So I used to do that for probably about a year, and we used to have to do it in suits, walk around, fill in a map, highlight it where we'd been. It was tough, especially in summer. It's quite a sweaty job, to be honest.
How was your success rate with that? Because door to door stuff I've done in the past, and I'm sure lots of people listening have too. But selling stuff door to door in Liverpool, and I mean this with respect to my Liverpool brethren, like they're going to give you some, give you some stuff, aren't they? They're going to give you some stories and a bit of lit back, I imagine.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I think a lot of people sort of respected that you were quite young and you were living. We weren't selling, actually knocking on doors. It was more just putting through letterboxes, actual
Gotcha.
marketing material. Targeting either houses that weren't on the market and saying, "Hey, we've just sold a property on your road. Here's a photo of it. We've got other buyers looking. Are you thinking of selling soon? We'll offer you a reduced fee." And then we also did board to board, so targeting people who are on with other agents. So we've just sold this one. We've got people looking as well, other buyers interested. So there's sort of two types of the canvassing or marketing material, but no, generally well received. Had a few near misses with some dogs in the letterboxes, but never really had anyone sort of say, "Hey, what are you doing at my place? Go away," or something like that. So it wasn't too bad actually.
Well, that's good. And then
Yeah.
what happened from there?
So then I progressed, started working in the office actually, started doing viewings out on the road, started negotiating some deals, ended up being promoted to senior negotiator within a few years. So I was there for in total about 7 years working at that company. Then as I was working, used to see a lot of developers doing property refurbs. Quite fancied a go at myself. Saw people buying things for half the price that they'd sold it for in 3 months, and thought, let's try and make some money. I really fancy a go at this. I'm sure a lot of other people start the same way as well. So ended up buying my first property when I was 21. Refurbed that over 3 months, sold that, did it a few more times. Had pretty good success, so it was going quite well. And then I moved on to Airbnb and short-term rental.
So
So
hang on, before we get onto that, because it feels like we're
yeah,
skipping a beat. Let's imagine, and I'm making up the numbers here, you haven't mentioned it, but let's imagine you're making 10, 15, 20 grand a pop on these refurbs, at age 21 through maybe 22, 23, 24, whatever it was. Like, why, and you, I don't, a few years later, why are you still not just doing this? This sounds like amazing money. Why not just keep doing that and making a fortune? Or was it that it was actually a lot of work, or actually there were some projects that made a loss, or I'm not trying to like hope for bad news. I'm just interested in why you would change from doing that. It sounds like the dream job.
yeah, of course, no, absolutely. It was mainly because I always wanted to live in Spain, which is sort
Mm,
of the next step of the journey. So I found that I had to be very hands-on on these projects. Sometimes I ended up painting things myself. Could be bad management as well on my behalf, but I just found that it took a lot of time.
yeah.
And I wanted to have, when I started out, I wanted to have a bit of freedom. I
Mm.
always wanted to live in Spain. So I decided that I did want to carry on with the projects, but I needed to have more of a better setup, maybe someone managing the projects for me. So I decided to sort of retreat, move to Spain, and then think about how I'm going to manage it from being there. And I thought I'd maybe get a better idea of doing that when I was actually there, rather than trying to plan ahead and think, hey, if I'm not here, what am I going to do? So I thought, let's take a leap. Let's see how it goes and see if I can set up doing the refurbs from abroad, basically.
Did you take a leap on the boat or did you fly over?
In the car, unfortunately.
Oh, you drove down. Wow,
Yeah, I
nice.
drove down first time because we had to take the dog over as well, do all the vaccinations. Didn't
The
want
whole
to take
bit.
it on the boat. So yeah, it was a long drive. Done it a few times actually.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So there we are. Now there we are. I wasn't there, by the way, everyone. But there's Andy there in Spain, living the life with a glass of sangria or whatever his preferred tipple is. What's your preferred tipple, Andy? Is it a beer?
I'll
What are you
probably
having?
go for the Albarino. It's a Spanish wine. It's quite famous in the UK as well. But
There you
where I
go.
was living in the north of Spain, they had the vineyards out there. So that'll probably be my go-to choice if I had to choose.
So there he is. He's got he's had 6 large glasses of Albarino, and he's had an idea
Not driving.
while driving, not driving. And what short term rentals? You mentioned it there. So how did that? Well, that you sort of covered how it came about. What did you do to make anything happen with that? And what was your experience of it?
Yeah, so we decided to buy a base in the UK when I was actually moving to Spain. First of all, because I knew I'd have to come back for work reasons, friends, family. So I've never really bought a property in a city centre. Always heard a lot of, I say, horror stories or bad stories about particularly apartments in city centres, saying that they're quite complicated with leases, service charges, etc. Um, but decided that when I was back, I wanted to be in a city so that I could get around, trains, and I was near to things. So I viewed an apartment in Liverpool city centre, which was a studio apartment, but it was very big. It's like an old building. It was 65 meters squared, but they had
Jeez,
it laid out as a studio. So it's
that's
quite a big
mental,
one.
isn't it? That's
It was
nuts.
huge. Yeah,
Uh,
3 meter high ceilings as well. So you walked in, you had this feeling of such openness, and I couldn't believe that they had it as a studio. So
you have this
sort of
tiny bed in the corner. You'd barely be able to see it when you're at a far distance. Is that a bed over there?
I know the lounge area where the bed, it was huge. It felt like too big. It was like this needs dividing up. A bit
Yeah.
of thought going into it. So, in a nice area, the Liverpool city centre. Liverpool's very touristy, so I thought, let's buy this. Let's do a bit of work to it. I made it into a two-bedroom apartment in the city centre. Nice balcony, very central. And the plan was to rent it out on Airbnb. I'd never done it before. I'd heard good things. It was very, something that's very sort of current at the moment. A lot of people do it, and there's more and more hosts every single year. So I thought,
Sure.
let's give this a go. I'll put it on Airbnb and ended up putting it on Booking.com and Verbo as well, and see how it goes. Really, the plan was to when I was in Spain rent it out, and when I came back, use that as my base and not rent it out.
Excellent. That sounds like a plan. How did that go?
It went surprisingly well, actually. So, I briefly lived in the property myself before I moved over to Spain because I had to sort a lot of paperwork out. So I think that really helped actually living in the property before renting it out. And I see a lot of people in the space recommending you do that, or at least you go and stay in your property a couple of nights to actually realize what things are needed there.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
but I think that really helped, and that meant that I got a lot of bookings. So my occupancy was like 85 to 90% year round. It actually got so busy that I ended up, when I came back, just staying with my parents because my property was booked out the whole time. So the original plan of using it as a base went out the window quite quickly. Um, but for good reasons, I suppose.
If you don't mind me asking, and for the sake of me and but also the list anyone listening and watching, please God let there be people listening and watching. Welcome along, one and all. What kind of rates are we talking about? Of course, it's just an example, but Liverpool city centre, what is now a two-bed apartment, roughly speaking, what are people paying nightly, say in the midweek and at the weekend, roughly speaking.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I had a two double bedroom apartment. I also had a sofa bed in the lounge. I found that was
Yeah,
quite key actually, to have that set up. So essentially you could have three different parties, whether people in couples or there was a couple and someone on their own, or three different people. I found that very useful. There are technically three sort of separate beds if you like. But my rates I charged around £110 midweek per night and 235 of a weekend as well. But I did
yeah,
normally do a 2 night minimum stay. I know
sure.
a lot of hosts use that as well. So
Mm.
I didn't want people coming in for one night ideally, and then a lot of changeovers, a lot of cleaning fee, a lot of stress. So yeah, that's what my rates were for a two bed with sofa bed in the city
Yeah,
centre.
fabulous, fabulous. And so anyone with a mathematical bent can do the maths on that, right? If you and there are a lot of costs. I know because I've done it as well, and cleaning and things. You try and get a
Yeah.
cleaner to come in and do a really high level professional clean. It's not cheap, is it? Um,
No.
and nor should it be, right? They need to they pay them properly too. But then you can still do the maths on 200 odd a night. The maths that Andy just talked about, and it's a good whack. It's great news. Everybody wins. People get a place to stay. Andy gets a place to stay in Vigo. Happy days. But you noticed, I think I'm right in saying that there was that you felt like, despite this, you were still leaving some money on the table. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So I had a good experience. What I didn't have a good experience in, and the reason why I built HostAlert is because I got caught out so many times when big events were happening in the city and I hadn't actually changed my pricing. So I've just discussed my rates sort of weekday and weekend. Most hosts will set them throughout the calendar year, so they're automatic into your calendar. The problem I found was when there's a big event on and I didn't know about it, those rates would be automatically set and people would book my place and essentially be getting a very, very cheap deal, sometimes paying a third of the price they would or half the price they would to either another apartment or a hotel alternative. So really, this happened to me on a lot of occasions in Liverpool. The Grand National happened to me twice. Taylor Swift, Dua Lipa, Liverpool Trophy Parade, even bank holidays. That used to happen to me because the softwares I used to use, they didn't actually recognize when bank holidays were happening. So when there's a bank holiday Monday, that Sunday night essentially becomes another weekend night, whereas it's a weekday price with your standard rates. So I got caught out so many times at bank holidays as well. Probably a little bit of, I could have been a bit more on top of it, but everyone's got lives, everyone's busy with various things. It's easily done. And even that one night for a bank holiday cost me probably £120. And that happened to me on numerous occasions.
Serious money, that, isn't it? Like, it's serious cash. I mean, I'll come on to some other numbers in a minute to give people a sense of it as well. But even just we took it that bank holiday, which is probably one of the smaller examples. It's like
Yeah.
120 notes. If I said to you, "Hey Andy, I've only just met, but do you fancy giving me 120 quid?" You'd probably say, "Nah, not so much." You know, like, how about no? So, but yeah, that's what you're doing. You're leaving that on the table. I think I'm trying to advertise for HostAlert, and I'm not. I have no share position in HostAlert, not least because it's not a publicly listed company, at least not yet. But I'm just. I'm feeling Andy's pain. It's a genuine pain because we did exactly the same thing. Me and Chris had a Airbnb unit for a while. We don't anymore, but we did, and we did exactly the same thing and faced exactly the same problem. So, speaking of some numbers, one of the reasons I wanted to have Andy on. So, speaking of some numbers, talk to me about maybe an on-purpose extreme example of where you might be leaving the most money on the table, and of course, people listening might be doing the same.
Yeah, so I mentioned the Grand National. Twice I'd set my normal rate, if you like, and twice I was booked for the 4 to 5 days that the festival takes place. So on two occasions, I left £1,000 on the table easily, both times, and that was
Wow.
within 2 years. The problem that I found is a lot of hosts price 12 months in advance, so you'll set your availability, your calendar, and people can book 12 months out basically. So when the event would finish 1 year, the next year would come into that booking window
Uh,
and people would just book straight away at your standard
this is
rate.
nice. Let's book here.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So, and I never, you could try and cancel, but first of all, it doesn't look good. You know, you shouldn't cancel if it's your mistake. It's your mistake. You also get sort of downgraded on Airbnb if you do cancel guests. So that wasn't really an option, but that was a real key point when events came in for the following year, which were recurring events that happen every single year.
Yeah.
Same with bank holidays happen, around the same time, if not the same time every year. People would book and then you'd be left short and you'd be leaving, in my case, £1,000 a couple of occasions on the table.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and then big concerts, you'll know, everyone knows there's concerts announced throughout the year. Normally tend to be more summertime, but they're announced throughout the year. You don't know when they're going to be announced. They get
Yeah.
announced and bookings will come in. It happened to me with Taylor Swift, with Dua Lipa. I got two bookings straight away, like within 5, 10 minutes of each other for like a random weekday in, I think it was July. I was like, what event's going on? Because there's no way that two people are going to book that random week in July. So I looked online and it was Dua Lipa was playing at Anfield. So
Mm.
my standard weekday price at like £110 a night, I really could have charged double, to be honest with you. So, and that happened. That was two bookings for 2 nights each. So times that by four, probably 450 quid left on the table essentially. And it's all
Yeah.
down to not having the event awareness about what's happening around my short-term rental property.
Got you. So over six large glasses of wine. Is it white or red? This wine you
It's
mentioned.
white.
White. Lovely glasses of white. You came up with an idea to solve this problem. Talk us through it.
Yeah, so the solution is called HostAlert. As you mentioned earlier, Tom, we've partnered with an event intelligence layer. We actually do some of our own event ingestion as well, around like public holidays, etc. To really provide hotel grade, industry grade event intelligence data to short-term rental hosts. I always say to people, when you go and book a hotel and there's a big event happening, do you ever get a bargain or are their pricing already set? And they're already set, and the reason is they're using the data that HostAlert provides the short-term rental host as well to actually configure the pricing beforehand. So there's a lot more short-term rental hosts than hotels. They're often competing with each other to get bookings directly between hotels and short-term rentals. So we want to solve the problem that short-term hosts don't have access to that event data. So that's what we do. We provide it to short-term rental hosts.
Okay. That sounds good. And mm, uh, what's what's the what, I want to. I'm mostly a negative guy, so I'm immediately
You
thinking
don't
of the
seem
problems with this.
it.
Yeah, I'm trying to pick holes in it. I'm trying not to do that, but that's what my brain's doing. So, how much does it cost? Is it a fortune? This thing?
Uh, well, the hotel groups, that they'll pay tens of thousands of pounds a year for this type of data. we're charging an absolute fraction of that price. 14.99 per property. If you have a property in the same location, you could just use one address and you could search from there rather than two subscriptions if you need to. But there is the ability to manage multiple portfolios in different locations. So 14.99 per property, that gives you 3 month access, future access to event data, or you can pay annually. That gives you the 12-month full access. Annual is £144 a year, one-off payments. But when you're doing your pricing as a host, you generally do 12 months in advance. I got stung, like I mentioned earlier, from not doing that. So annual would always be recommended, but for serious hosts that want a price plan early and take advantage of that demand, because guests book so far in advance. Things when events happen that a year out or 10 months out, they'll book and secure their accommodation beforehand. So if you want to take advantage of that demand surge, then you need to really be on the case with the event data.
Yeah, so I'm I don't I no longer do any short term rentals, but I might do in the future. And what's striking me was the voice in the back of my head saying, if you haven't got some sort of system like this that's um, that's doing, is it called dynamic pricing? It's doing dynamic pricing, like long term dynamic pricing, or whatever the fancy name for it is these days. Like then you're a lunatic, because if you for 14.99, for example, can get, or whatever it might be, a very reasonable price, but sounds of it, can save yourself losing £1,000 on a Grand National, whatever that event might be for you, wherever you are in Chelmsford, Edinburgh, wherever it might be. Maybe Edinburgh might be a bad example. Did you do Scotland as well?
Yeah, we cover the whole
There
UK.
you
So
go.
yeah, we did
Edinburgh's
Scotland
back
as
in.
well. So no worries,
Um,
you're in Edinburgh. All good.
Oh, yeah, and Edinburgh is a good example of a city where it
Great
goes
city,
crazy at
yeah.
certain times, right? So, then you're an absolute fool, aren't you? Like, yeah, everyone should have some version of this working in the background. Otherwise, you're just leaving loads of money on the table. So yeah, it sounds like a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, there is some other sort of other use cases as well. It's not essentially just about making extra money. Everyone wants to make extra money, of course they do. But there might be some events that hosts actually don't want to host, don't want guests staying in the property. We have Creamfields Festival that takes place every year. I had people stay in my property for Creamfields. Not uncommon to get a complaint from the neighbours that people are partying till 8 in the morning, dancing around the kitchen. It's a chaotic
Sure.
weekend in Liverpool, and I know plenty of hosts that actually don't want to host for certain events. There could be a big
Yeah.
festival, more in your apartments, people walking through boots. So ultimately, you can make that decision if you have access to the data to be able to make that decision. The important thing is knowing what events are on. Also, there is a lot of events that take place midweek. Now, midweek events are such a good opportunity to fill your calendar when the calendars generally are quieter. All hosts know that weekends tend to be the time when people travel. Generally, occupancy on weekends is a lot higher than weekdays. I used to use a 2 night minimum stay when there was a big event on. For example, a lot of football matches take place midweek. I would actually change my minimum night stay to one of the event night
Mm.
that was happening, and I'd increase the price maybe 50-60% for that one night, because a booking for one night at a higher rate is better than an empty calendar. So that's another very useful way to use HostAlert as well. Take advantage of midweek events, take advantage of quieter times in your calendar.
And asking a straight question for once in my goddamn life, did that work? Did people actually book the one night that say was the Champions League game, or whatever it was?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think when football matches happen, for example, or other events, a lot of people travel on the event day, especially when it's
Mm.
an evening or a nighttime event. It's harder to get time off work. They might not want to use holidays. I noticed that the pattern for midweek events, people generally want to stay for one night,
Mm.
especially when it's midweek, like Wednesday, instead of staying for the whole weekend. It could be 3 days of annual leave. They might just want to go to the event, maybe take the next day off, and then they're back in work. So that always worked, especially Champions League nights. A lot of people traveling, away fans. Every Premier League game, between 4 and 7,000, maybe more away fans going to every city. The Premier League matches were just announced about 2 weeks ago, and there's 380 fixtures that take place all across England. It's so key. It was such an important day in the host calendar. Probably went under the radar. I imagine there's a lot of hosts that maybe didn't see what was happening. Also, it's a lot of matches to actually stay on top of 380. So, there's a lot of information coming out. Those fixtures will change due to TV rights, clashing with other fixtures. And then on top of that, there's cup matches that are announced throughout the year, Champions League nights. So a lot of information to stay on top of. HostAlert does that for you. That's what we want to do.
You got to change your voice when you do that last line. You got to give it like host alert does that for you. Go deeper. I think.
I need a bit of practice on that one.
Yeah. But otherwise, I think you nailed it. So well done. So over your 6 glasses of wine there in Spain, it sounds like you've got time, which is great, by the way. Time to have a look, maybe, and be an expert or someone knowledgeable about the short-term rental market. I'm now moving on strictly from HostAlert just to try and get pick your brains about the short-term rental market and maybe about the market in general. What's your again, just playing devil's advocate a little bit, do you think there's a risk of, or frankly, forward brackets, it's already happened, close brackets, that the market's becoming a bit saturated, that the returns are going to fall off or are starting to fall off with short-term rentals and Airbnb stuff, or is that absolute nonsense?
From my point of view, I know Airbnb hosts are growing year on year. I think the figure's around 10%. So there's definitely more hosts. In terms of saturation, yeah, that there is reports, and I've seen data to say it's getting saturated. What hosts are trying to move into now is differentiation. You'll see on Airbnb. Airbnb's just gone from actual hosting apartments and having people stay at places to actually advertising experiences and trips as well.
Okay.
So the differentiation and making your property stand out is, I think, the key factor at the moment. Because there is year on year more hosts, but also there is year on year more tourism as well, and more people traveling. So if you speak to someone who's negative, they might tell you one thing, but I personally see it as an opportunity. If you can differentiate and there's more travelers and stand out, get good reviews, I still think the opportunity's there.
Fair enough. And then sort of swinging it back around to you, almost as if we planned it, like to do a full circle type thing, was what, if you don't mind me asking, what are your plans? Is it to grow HostAlert? Is it to grow your short-term rental business? A bit of whatever you want? Is it to invest heavily in wine? What are you going to do?
I love to have that lifestyle where I could sit back, invest in wine, but
not yet. Yeah.
So my plan is mainly to focus on HostAlert. I will hopefully move back into the short-term rental space, but I'm putting most of my energy into this alongside my co-founder Paul. So he's also my uncle. So it's a sort of family affair, which is good and bad.
It's a family business.
The focus is on HostAlert. We plan on adding integrations with channel managers, with short-term rental actually platforms as well. So if we can hopefully connect listings via Airbnb or Booking.com, so that when the hosts are doing the pricing, they can maybe see the events that are happening on each day within the calendar.
Right.
So that's on the horizon. We currently offer the UK, as I mentioned earlier, so we are looking to US expansion as well very soon. So no, main focus is HostAlert at the moment, and then we'll get back into that short-term rental and property space hopefully soon.
Yeah, makes sense. I was going to ask a question then, which is kind of my job, but I forgot what it was because I'm getting old and I'm on antibiotics. So you might have to talk amongst yourselves. No, that was it. I did want to ask, when I find time, I like to ask people, because then I learn something even more than I would otherwise do, which is, what are you a big reader? And if not, why not? And if so, have you got a favourite book or a great book, or obviously audio book or podcast you've read recently that you'd recommend for people?
You know what? At the start of this year, one of my resolutions was actually to read more.
How's that gone?
Not too great, to be honest with you.
Right.
I did read The Art of Spending Money at the start.
Okay.
Very famous, very famous book.
I'm not sure I've read that one. I've heard of it, The Art of Spending Money. Can you remember the author?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'm sure we can Google it.
I could have a look.
Yeah. We'll post it with the show notes in case anyone's wondering, but I'm sure you can probably Google it before we get there. Art of spending money. So, was that any good? Did you manage to spend more money?
Yeah, well, it's really about how not to spend the money. So, yeah, it was an interesting book. It was one of them. I read it and sort of thought, I already know quite a lot of this, but there is some good
Yeah.
information in there as well. So definitely worth a read. About it's not just about business, but inside in your personal life as well, and how you manage
Mm,
the relationship between the two. So I think we had a quick chat earlier, Tom, about you know life's not all about just business, business, business. You need some disconnection and personal time. So it really went in about that,
mm,
and also not chasing things that are materialistic just because you think you want it and you actually don't. So
mm.
yeah, it was good. It was a good reminder of why you're doing what you're doing and also sort of the best path to be on. So yeah, I'd recommend it to any of the listeners. It was a good book.
And after we finish, I'll throw one in. I know people have heard me say this one before, but in case you're new, I'm a huge fan of The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. It's probably my favourite book of all time. Either that or something. It's not called Think and Grow Rich because that's another book. It's called something about how to get really rich, but it's by Felix Dennis, and it's the only book he wrote. It's the only book on wealth that he wrote. He wrote lots of poetry, but he wrote only book he wrote on getting rich. And I liked it in the forward. He said, "I've got terminal cancer, so there probably won't be a follow up to this book." And indeed there wasn't. So it was nice because he's not trying to sell you anything. It's like, this is it. Whatever's in this book is like, he's going to get everything in it and then you're done, you're out, and it was inspirational. The guy, when he died, was worth about 400 million quid. So he didn't know his onions.
I'll have to put that one on the list then when I do get around to reading
I would,
it.
on your presumably on your ever expanding list of books you've not read yet.
Yeah, it's growing by the minute.
That should be on there. And then for anyone listening and watching, then feel you're welcome. I'd like to thank everyone for attending, for everyone who's listening, and a special thanks, of course, to our wonderful speaker, Mr. Andy Crosby. We will post, as always, Andy's contact details with the show notes. But everyone's lazy, Andy. How can people get hold of you just immediately?
So you can find us on Instagram. It's at HostAlert _. Also on the web, www.hostalert.co.uk. LinkedIn and Facebook, both HostAlert. If you type them in, we will come up straight away. So yeah, if anyone wants to get in touch, any questions, follow us, follow the journey, would be absolutely delighted.
Smashing. Thanks very much indeed for taking the time.
Thanks so much.